We're back after a couple weeks off of our Proverbs study since I was moving and I wasn't able to, well, frankly, to find the time to sit down and actually study these Proverbs. But we're going to finish up this section of chapter 3. So chapter 3 starting verse 27 all the way to 35. Do not withhold anything good from those who deserve it when it is within your power to do. Do not say to your neighbor, "Go away, come back some other time. Tomorrow I will give it to you, although it is with you." Do not plan harm against your neighbor when he is living with you peacefully. Do not quarrel with a person for no good reason when he has done you no harm. Do not envy a violent person, and do not choose any of his ways, because a crooked person is a disgusting thing to Yahweh, but Yahweh's confidential advice is with upright people. Yahweh's curse is on the wicked person's house, but he blesses the home of righteous people. Although he mocks the mockers, he gives grace to the humble. Wise people inherit honor, but fools, because of pride, inherit disgrace. It's hard to read this proverb without seeing in it a condemnation of both sides of the ideological spectrum in North America today. On the one hand, to those who would fit more on the left side of the spectrum, essentially the ideas of leave your neighbor alone, don't mess with his stuff, don't get in his business if it's not your business, is a condemnation of an ideology that wants to essentially bring everybody together in what many would call Marxist way, to believe the same thing, act the same way, and do all the same activities with the same ideology. On the other hand, the wisdom of the Proverbs tells us that if that's your attitude, you also at the same time must be completely generous with your neighbor, realizing that there may be things that are in your power to do for your neighbor, that if you leave them undone, you are a wicked person. It's interesting to me to explore the ideas of critical race theory and realize that at their heart, if I'm being empathetic, is a desire for people who have had resources or privilege to realize that they've had resources and privileges, and to be generous with those resources and privileges. Of course, it plays itself out in some ways that are sinful, just like conservative ideas play themselves out in ways that are sinful. But as I read this, I can't help but see the heart behind many who believe in critical race theory. And so both conservatives and liberals, as they go to the ends of their spectrum, are going against the Proverbs in this section. What God says a wise person does is a wise person sees all of their resources, that includes not just their financial resources, but their time and their energy and their empathy and their interest in other people, and gives them to other people because they've been given everything they need in Christ. And yet, at the same time, they do not see themselves as the ones who are going to change the world by changing everyone else's ideology. They're willing to leave well enough alone and to live at peace with their neighbor in as much as they are able to do that. And while we see the world around us and we think, if I lived like that, nothing would change. Well, you're right. Nothing will change if you live like that, but the world's not yours to change. The world is God's to change. And God tells you this is a wise way to live. And so when God changes the world, you will actually be positioned well to be a benefit to the people in the world. Let's go down a logical train for a little while. Let's say the ideas of the ideological left take power, run over this country and to many of the countries in the Western world. Would it not be a good thing to be a person who is generous in those moments, who stands out in a culture where everyone is trying to control everyone else? On the other hand, what if the ideas of conservatism take control of this country, the ideas of the ideological right? They push for individual freedoms, leaving well enough alone. Wouldn't it be amazing if you could stand out in that culture as being someone who cares for those who can't care for themselves as well, who haven't had the same opportunities because of the systems that have been in place in our country? See, being a wise person makes you unique, but you can only be a wise person if you understand you have everything you need in Christ already. And that's how to grow up.